Hi guys, in this lesson we will learn how to change the rows or column values, especially how to change or manipulate specifically numeric data with the help of the methods. This is the first part, and in this part we will explain the basics of it. So let's create a new file and call it change values file, and let's import our pandas library. Import pandas spd, click shift enter, and now we will import the data frame to work on. Red CSV. Inside of the quote I will go one step back and slash. You could see that our data is located here inside of the data folder. Let's import this file outside by countries. Inside of the data folder slash, I will paste in the name of the file and print it out, the first 5 rows here. Okay, we have forgotten type in the alias here, and now we have imported our data. And if I want to make some changes to this data, the only thing that I want to do right now is to change this numeric data here, but with the manipulation of the strings will be in the future. So if I need these columns here, I can even remove these columns or extract only the columns which are going to be used in this lesson. I will keep one of these string columns. Let's keep in the region column. I will type in the usecols equals. Inside of it I will type in the region column and all these numeric columns here, starting from rate and count and year. And now if I click shift enter, we will have the new data frame here. If I want to again set this region as an index in order to differentiate it a bit, I can do it either with the help of the set index, as we have done it in the previous lesson, region like this one, or I can even do it directly from here by typing the index call keyword equals to the name of the column name that you are going to place as an index here. In that case we have a region here. You will see we have placed it as an index, and now we will start to explain the sum method, or explain how to make the changes to these numeric values here. So first, if I type in the df sum method and click shift tab here, you could see that it will pop up the window and says that the sequence of these parameters should be like that, but I will not confuse you. I will just try to make it as simple. You can add this axis parameter for columns here by default. Even if I just click on shift enter, by default it will do what? It will sum all the column values respectively here. For the rate it will be this one, 1332 for count, and for year you could see that it would by default it will count the values or sum these values by rows here. But I can do it manually by giving a parameter called axis equals to rows. Axis equals to rows. We basically say that sum up all the rows for each columns separately here. If I click shift enter, the result will be the same. Basically there is no meaning to sum these values, but you might have different data and you will need to sum it somewhere, and this is just the terminology of using it. Don't pay attention that this year should be summed, this is not should be summed, this is not the proper way of doing, or it's not recommended to use years as the summing here. I just give you the explanation of how to do it. Okay, we have summed it. Even instead of the axis we could do what? If I copy it and paste it like 0 here and click shift enter. Again, it will sum the values of these columns here. If I try to check the data type of these columns here, the types, you could see that it will print out the data type, the float, integer, and integer here. Make sure that the data type of your column values are integer or floats in order to sum up properly. Otherwise, it will not sum them up. Otherwise, you will need to convert the data types of these values here with the help of astype method, which will be covered in the future. Okay, don't worry. We can even do what? Sum up these rows by assigning for each column name here, like for count or for year separately here. If I try to sum up only the values of rows for year column, I can do it like that. df, or let's sum up the rate column here. df rate, and then I will add the sum method here. Inside the sum, I type in the axis rows here. Click shift enter. It will sum all the rows for the rate column here. You could see because we have defined the column name here as a rate. But basically it sums only the rows here, only the rows for each column or for the whole data frame here. I can even, if you want, we could do what? Round it. I like to round sometimes these numbers, like this one. It will print out 2 numbers after the decimal point. We could even do what? If I want, I can even assign the listing or sum it with the help of the slicing here. We have already covered it in the Python lessons here. If you have no choice of doing summing it, you can easily do it by defining the, for example, 0. It will sum only the first column here, 0 column here, or the first one. Or if I try to sum the last column, it will sum it the last column. This is column the year here. But if you want to sum or iterate over columns and add its values, I mean horizontally, you want to sum them up, you might have a data frame and you will need to sum them horizontally here. We will type in by axis equals to columns here. In that case, this is for rows, but for columns, let's again call our data frame df with head. And now I will do what? Sum these values horizontally. Okay, in order to do that, we already know that sum method works only vertically, but if I want them to print it out like horizontally, I will type in the axis equals to what? Columns here. Columns. Click shift enter. It will sum the values for the columns here. You will see if I had it for Asia, it will do 4,498. It will just sum these numbers here. For Europe, it will have 2,083. I can even again use the slicing here. You could see it will print out all the items after the second row here, after the second row, because it just counts horizontally here. And now if instead of the columns on rows, I can even use what? I can use the numbers here. Instead of the rows, I can even type in 0 and run it again. The result will be the same. You could see if I just delete this one or this one to click run it, you could see that it will again sort them vertically here, like this one. 0 is corresponds to rows, while for columns we could assign 1 here, 1, and run it again. You could see the result is the same.